Most of us hear the word Freemason, and we usually think of a band of brothers that stretches across the world, a fraternity of moneyed men who engage in strange rituals and greet each other with a secret handshake. These people belonging to this mysterious nexus believe in a higher power, and together they share secrets and protect each other. And when they meet at the lodge, they do so with the doors closed to the world. What happens at the lodge stays at the lodge. The master leads the ceremony, and what he says will never become public knowledge. The fact Freemasonry is shrouded in so much secrecy does, of course, elicit us non-Freemason to be curious. So today, we'll try to separate the facts from the myth. But let's first go back to the beginning and see how it all got started. What we know as Freemasonry goes back to what were called the guilds of stonemasons and cathedral builders back in the Middle Ages Britain. A guild was kind of an association for certain kinds of artisans or merchants, so you could call them clubs for skilled workers. If you look at documents as far back as the 13th century, you can find mentions of Freemasonry, although the language used is either Latin or Norman French, so it goes back a long way. As you know, a mason is someone who works with stone, and the free part was supposed to signify just that these skilled artisans were not feudally bound. They were free. A potential medieval master mason as a kid would be educated in languages and math, and when in his teens, he would learn how to work with stone. Let's remember that building things back then was very important, so learning how to work with stone was seen as a huge deal. As the kid grew into an adult, he would become a journeyman, and once he became a master mason, he would gain a lot of respect. So now you can see why these guilds were respected. In the 17th and 18th centuries, these evolved into modern Freemasonry, and people belonging to this order believed in a higher power and brotherhood, with the Masonic rituals based on the myth of King Solomon's Temple. You can find manuscripts belonging to Freemasonry that talk about the Masons that built this temple. There were lots of manuscripts, and these have been studied since. We won't go into what they all contain, but later they evolved into what are now called Freemasonry constitutions. It's said about 100 such manuscripts still exist, but very few of them contain details of rituals and rites of passage. All you really need to know is that there were lots of different groups of Masons and lots of texts talking about codes of conduct and sometimes rituals. Masons basically joined ceremonies, and members had certain rules to follow based on chivalry. In 1717, the first Grand Lodge was established in England, and after that came more lodges. You could call the Grand Lodge the governing body and lodges branches of that body. What's important to mention is that Freemasonry was not especially a religious order, and it actually at times banged heads with the Roman Catholic Church. As we said, Freemasons believed and still believe in a higher power, but you're not supposed to discuss religion in regular Freemasonry. Talking about politics is also verboten. Also, in short, there was a split in Freemasonry, and some Masons refused to follow the order that Masons must believe in a deity. That order came from the United Grand Lodge of England, and what happened was a Masonry schism, meaning split, and then we got both Continental and Anglo-American Freemasonry. For instance, the latter group doesn't allow political discussion, but the former does. The split was a big issue, and the two groups engaged in rivalry over the years. This was significant, and it's written that this rivalry in part contributed to the rift that started the Mexican Civil War. So there have been splits and disagreements among Freemasons. They are not all alike. Some branches, for instance, allow women to join. And while Freemasonry is global, it's written that Masons in Anglo-Saxon countries were predominantly white Protestants. There are also other branches that don't belong to the official order of Freemasonry, so it's actually quite complicated, and the reported 6 million members don't all follow the same rules. But what are the rules? What do these people do? What's actually the point of becoming a Freemason? If African political leaders and wealthy American businessmen belong to Masonic orders, surely there's something to it. In 2018, the BBC did an interview with a Freemason, although this was a Freemason belonging to a woman's lodge. Her husband was a Mason too. She said there's nothing too strange about it, but she did have to pass 3 Freemasonry degrees to achieve her leading role at the lodge. When you get this 3rd degree, you become a fully fledged Mason. She didn't give her name to the BBC. Well, they didn't print it there, we mean. And she would not discuss what goes down at the ceremony. Those ceremonies are led by a master, but what he or she says cannot become public knowledge. Not surprisingly, this kind of secrecy leads non-Masons to thinking something really weird must happen, but all she said was that it's like being in a play and you just do your bit. She said there's no backslapping, and she doesn't take part in any kind of nepotism, meaning she's not rubbing shoulders with people to get ahead in her line of work. She said this to the BBC. It's a bit like Facebook in that way. You'll come across people you've met in the past,